No chemicals or preservatives, just 100% honest to goodness hickory smoked meat.
Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
Boy, some chicken wings have really hit the spot.
You ain't got no better food, like some chicken wings, some baby back ribs, some fries or something?
And that's just two guys talking, am I right? We're just talking.
Hey, howdy, hey. Back in the pit.
You nailed that timing, John. Yes. Well done.
I'm not going to lie. All I was thinking about is some wings really would hit the spot.
Oh, dude. Have you ever been to Wingstop?
Uh-huh.
Is it good?
Yeah, I'm a fan.
I was just talking with some girls on a drive today, and they were like, I've never been to Wingstop. And I was like, I bet Wingstop is pretty dang good.
Yeah, so Wingstop, you're talking about one of the things I know about.
Oh,
food.
Okay.
Have you heard the term phantom kitchen before?
No.
So with the advent of DoorDash,
Uh-huh.
there are several like phantom restaurants, or they call them phantom kitchens.
Okay.
But they're restaurants that you can only do delivery takeout from.
Oh, okay.
So Wingstop started as one of those.
Interesting.
And their kitchen was in Chili's.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
So are they like a...
I have no idea like what the relationship is there now, but it did so well as a phantom kitchen that it spun off into its own chain, and like there are now brick and mortar locations of it.
Oh, interesting.
There's another one. I think it's called Pardon My Cheesesteak.
It seems like I've heard of that now that you're saying it.
I don't know. I DoorDash like once every 3 months. Yeah, Pardon My Cheesesteak. We had that the other week, and it was pretty good.
Is it from around here?
No, it's another one of these. I'm trying to remember where this one came out of. I think this was Burger King's kitchen.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. And there's another one that I just saw that's called The Meltdown. And they're all different types of hot melts.
So can you go to these stores, or you just DoorDash them?
You just DoorDash them.
Interesting. And that's their whole business model. It's all straight through DoorDash.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so there's no overhead of having it's got to be that the existing brand now is adding a second menu, a second like revenue channel without having to add another kitchen, add another staff. Like the guy in the back who's cooking just instead of making a Whopper, makes a cheesesteak.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So I feel like we need like a sound effect of like,
wow.
And now you know.
The more you know. Wasn't that a thing back in the day?
Yeah.
Like dee. I don't know.
It was like the genie.
Yeah.
Great minds think alike. No. My mom, still this day, I am 37 years old. And she still, when I leave her house, she says, "Remember about great minds." But she said that every time I left the house as a kid.
I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah. Because great minds think for themselves. They don't cave to peer pressure.
Oh.
There you go.
I like that. That's actually pretty deep. I mean, how do we build on that, John?
I don't know.
I feel like we just hit the climax of the episode. 2 minutes in.
30 years of history right there. But you know what has more history than that, Mike?
What's that, John?
Fire.
How
do you like that segue?
Well done.
Yes!
Today we're going to try to talk about fire management.
I really want like a sound pad that I can be doing.
Doo-doo. Yeah. I'll take care of sound effects today. Don't you have some on there?
Yeah, I just pressed the button. It didn't do anything. Thanks for listening to the Fat Guys. Nope. You don't want that
the
one.
Outro. There you go. Some clapping. Okay, there it is. That's what we need, because we are throwing down the one-liners. Yeah. I love it. Termite walks into a bar and says, "Is the bartender here?" Oh. Anyway. Fire management.
A guy tried to sell me a coffin today. I told him that's the last thing I would need.
Yes. Fat Guys with Smokers is now
Dad
a
jokes
comedic podcast instead of a hobby podcast. So y'all are welcome. All right.
This is going to be a wild one, folks. I hope you're holding on.
Oh, dear.
If you don't have your seatbelt on, make sure to buckle up.
Well, John mentioned we ought to do some stuff on fire management, which honestly, John, kind of made me feel really sad that I haven't used my offset for some time now. Have you had a chance to use your big train one?
No. I was going to do it this weekend. Mm-hmm. And then I spent all day Saturday, literally until the point where I couldn't walk anymore, cleaning my garage so that
Good for you.
Mrs. Hayden Barbecue had a nice dry spot to park her car during the winter.
I support it. I
She
need to
does
clean my
too.
garage too. Anyway, we really haven't used them that much, and so as I was just kind of researching, getting ready for this, it made me think, man, I've got to bust mine out. Like I've got some peach and cherry wood I've been seasoning. You picked up some hickory or pecan from Salt Lake?
I got a large load of hickory.
Yeah.
And then the guys threw in some pecan for me too. Not very much, but
Dude, I love hickory. Also, that Meat Church hickory rub, I'm a fan.
yeah,
I put some on some chicken thighs. Holy crap.
yeah, it's
pretty damn
fantastic.
Anyway, so we thought we'd just kind of talk about the basics of fire management. And I thought that I'd just kind of tell my stories that I've told on here a bunch of how I learned the hard way about fire management. So,
I like it.
yeah.
I only have one, and we've already told it several times.
The Brinkman.
No, I guess that is a story of fire management. No,
Oh.
I was thinking about the pig pit.
Oh, yes, the pig pit. That's true. Well, that just blew my mind because everything I thought I knew was wrong with the pig pit. So,
Yep.
anyway, so fire management, the main thing. So I started on drums, right? And we've talked about our drums, ugly drum smokers. You can make them out of a 50-gallon barrel. I made mine for basically free out of leftover scrap metal and stuff I found on the side of the road and my father-in-law's welder. So, so the way that those work are you have a fire basket where you load it with charcoal, you light it on fire, get the charcoal started, and then it's basically like a long Weber kettle grill, basically. The charcoal is both your source of heat and smoke, I guess.
Well, let me just describe this.
Yeah.
One other way is you have a charcoal basket that has unlit charcoal
Right.
and some wood chunks or whatever you want to put in it. Mm-hmm. And then you light charcoal separately in a chimney and dump that on top.
Right.
So it's a slow burn down from the top.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You don't just light the whole charcoal basket all
Yeah,
at
you don't
once.
just send the whole thing, for sure.
I
So,
bet you could get some heat out of that.
oh,
though.
I'll bet it would. Seriously, especially if you left the lid off, like it would go
buddy.
nuts. So anyway, and that's how the Weber kettle works. In fact, I was cooking some thighs on my Weber kettle this Sunday, and I thought to myself, I need this. I just want to get these done. I wonder if I could heat this up a little bit. And I took the lid off and just left the intake all the way open on the bottom. Holy cow. I was singeing arm hairs reaching over with my tongs trying to flip it. Like, it's crazy how hot it gets. But that's kind of the basics of what we wanted to talk about with fire management is everything is controlled with the air that you allow into the firebox to kind of light the fire. Does that making sense? Like,
Yeah, you need three things for, well, two things really for a fire. Mm-hmm. You need a fuel and you need oxygen.
Yeah.
The fuel's really hard to take away.
Mm-hmm.
So you control the heat of the fire with the amount of oxygen that you give to it.
Yeah. And you can dial it in pretty good. Mm-hmm. Like, especially these drums that John has built especially, that thing maintains really well, doesn't it? Like, stays right where you want it.
Oh, yeah. I can run for 8 to 10 hours at 225 without touching it.
That's awesome. And it's all just, so these drums, I guess, maybe I should describe them a little better for people that haven't seen them or listened to us talk about them. I feel like we beat it to a dead horse, but it's been a while.
Every time we talk about it, I want to build another one.
I know, that's what I was just thinking. I saw that you had a barrel for sale on Facebook, and I was like, ooh.
It's got a welded top on it.
Oh, never mind then. Anyway, you drill holes in the bottom, and then I just have pipe nipples on there. I do have one ball valve that you can kind of adjust. And that's how you control the heat, is with those little inlets on the bottom. And when I first read about this online before I built mine, I was like, there's no way that is effective. There's no way you can dial it in just like turning the knob on a gas grill. But I would argue it's really pretty good, especially once you figure out how your pit works. Because like, if I was thinking this the other day, I was using my Blackstone and it was really windy. And so it kept blowing the flame and it just wasn't staying hot. And I was thinking, man, charcoal really doesn't have that issue when you control how much air goes in. I guess if it was really windy and it was blowing in your intake, that might be a little bit different. But
I've had that.
Yeah.
I was trying to use mine like in a rainstorm where it was blowing hard.
Uh-huh.
So in these pipe nipples, because mine's set up the same way Mike's is. Mm-hmm. If you imagine looking at the face, like standing in front of the barrel at 6 o'clock, pointing straight at you, is where my ball valve is. Mm-hmm. And then you've got 9, 12, and 3, there are pipe nipples on it.
Yeah.
I had to change from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock because I leave one on mine. You leave one pipe nipple open, and then you kind of have a half to quarter of one open with the ball valve.
Yeah, that's kind of your fine tuning.
I had to change from my 9 o'clock side to my 3 o'clock side for my open nipple because air was blowing in there and it was spiking my temperature like crazy.
Huh. See, and I've been in points where I needed the heat to come up and I just could not get it to warm up. And one time I took a air mattress fan and put it just outside so it wouldn't burn. But that thing got it. So I guess it makes sense. Started to heat it up. Just like you would see like a bellows and...
Yeah, I was going to say...
Something like an old school blacksmith shop or something.
Oh, well, so ThermaPro, is that who makes your ThermaPen?
Uh-huh.
I always get them and ThermPro mixed up in my head.
Yeah.
They make a device called the Billows.
Oh, really?
For barrels and different types
like
of cookers. But that's all it is. It's a little fan that's got a controller on it that when it sees the temperature drop, it kicks on a fan to blow air on it.
Yeah. I saw one of those, but it had a cool name to it. UDS, I don't know. Fan control. I can't remember what it was called.
They literally call theirs a Billows.
Maybe there's a bunch of them. But it seems like one had a really cool name to it, and now I can't find it.
No, it's ThermoWorks, Mike.
Oh, ThermoWorks. Yeah, that's right. I get them confused. ThermoWorks and ThermPro. They're just called the Billow. Mm-hmm. Billows.
Yeah.
Lava Lock. I can't remember. There was one that somebody made that was actually pretty cool that I thought about getting, but now I can't see what it was called. Oh, just Barbecue Guru. That's what it is. Oh. It's got a 10 CFM fan that you just hook up on one of your intakes, and then you can just set it to whatever speed you want, and it controls your heat.
No.
Barbecue Guru is what that's called, in case you're into it. Anyway, and so most of my cooking, John, as far as fire management, has really been on the UDS, on the Ugly Drum Smoker, and the Weber kettle. But we built the offset about a year. Shoot, it's been like a year and a half ago.
At least. I think it's closer to 2 years, Mike.
Good heavens, you're right. I'm getting old. I need to break it out again. And so when I first got that, we talked about this last week. John gave me a ridiculous amount of pork and said, I want you to use the smoker you've never used before to cook all... How many pounds of pork would that have been? You gave me 8 butts, probably 8 pounds a piece.
No, they would have been more than that. It would have been at least... it was probably 80 to 90 pounds. 80 to
90 pounds of meat. John forced me to do that on my brand new smoker that I'd never used before.
John definitely didn't go and buy more pork to cook on his that he had hours and hundreds of pounds of meat on. Just in case if Mike screwed up.
And let me tell you, that was one of the longest nights of my life. But I learned a lot. Because my whole thinking was an offset smoker is just like a drum. Or just like the Weber kettle. Where I throw some charcoal in the offset firebox. And I let that heat up. And that heats up the drum. It heats up the cooking chamber. It goes out the chimney. And everything's wonderful. That's not necessarily how an offset works. You have to have an actual fire in the firebox. Weird, I know. And so that took me a long time to figure out because I just had charcoal, like a crap ton of charcoal. I had a few wood chunks, but I really didn't have any wood. And it turns out you got to have some wood to run an offset.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the big differences there is on the Weber and on the drum. Well, I wouldn't call it direct heat. Like there's definitely some radiant heat that happens because your food is so close to the heat source.
Yeah.
Whereas on an offset, like it is literally offset. There's no vertical heat transfer that occurs.
Right.
I mean, especially on a big offset, like on my train, that food may be 4 feet to 5 feet away from the fire. Mm-hmm. So that fire has to be going to really then have that heat pulled through the cooking chamber.
Mm-hmm. Which, again, makes sense now that we're sitting here talking about it. That night, like I got maybe an hour collectively of sleep, just running out to check it, and I could not figure out why I couldn't get the temp up. Like I ran the whole night, it probably ran 200 or a little less, just because it was all charcoal. So it was a hot mess.
Yeah, that's brutal, man.
But so a couple notes I wrote about offset designs because we're talking about fire management. So first, you got to understand how the offset works. The firebox, which is called a firebox and not a charcoal basket, but a firebox because it needs to have actual fire in it. That should have been my first hint, John. But it's separated, just like you said. It allows indirect heat and smoke to cook the food slowly. And then what you really have to watch your fire because you don't want that dark, sooty smoke. Mm-hmm. You want that blue smoke, or even like in the middle of the day, if you can't see the smoke, that's almost the goal, just because that means you're burning a clean fire. Would you agree?
Yeah. The clear, just like heat waves, mm-hmm. is almost without smoke. Like that's just a true heat.
And that's usually when it is super hot. So sometimes that can be a problem as well, I guess. Yeah,
but you want white or blue smoke, not brown or black smoke.
Yeah. Yep. And you can see that. I mean, it doesn't take much to figure out what's happening. Like if something starts freaking out, then you know, mm-hmm. there's an issue. As far as wood, you want to avoid soft woods. Like don't just cut up some 2x4s and throw them in your Your offset
Pine
smoker.
is not your friend.
Yeah. But you want a hardwood because you're going to go through some wood. And that's another thing that I didn't really understand. I didn't realize how much wood that big cooking chamber that I have was going to take. And it's significant. Like I went and bought like a bag of hickory at Home Depot. And I thought, well, this will last me several cooks because I thought it was just for flavor that you throw on the charcoal. But you need that heat from burning that. And so, it takes a while.
Yeah. And your wood, too, like, this isn't just go chop down a hickory tree and throw it in. Like, the wood needs to be dried. It needs to be cured. If it's got moss or other stuff growing on it, you need to brush that off and get it cleared off because what causes that black sooty fire and creosote to build up is moisture in the wood. So you want that wood to be dry. You don't want anything extra to be on it because if there is, you're going to taste that in your food.
Yeah, which is icky. For shizzle.
Icky, icky, boom, boom.
Let's see. We already talked about the clean smoke. Aim for thin blue smoke rather than thick white smoke. White smoke indicates incomplete combustion, which can lead to bitter or harsh flavors. Kind of reminds me of when you're first starting your charcoal, whether you're using a chimney or whatever. Like you're getting thick white smoke because everything is just starting to cook. Yeah. You don't want that going on your food. The main thing, so on and offset at least, you have an intake and a chimney. And the chimney kind of freaked me out because I was like, okay, how do you kind of control your air? Do you kind of match them up, like halfway open on your intake, halfway open on your chimney? Honestly, everything that I've read and my experience tells me, I just crank the chimney open and leave it open the whole time. And any adjustments to temperature or anything is all done on the intake. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think the only time I would adjust a chimney is if my draw was too fast.
Yeah.
So if the heat, like if I was really trying to cool it down, or if I was burning a lot of fuel but not capturing a lot of the heat in the chamber, I would close my exhaust.
Yeah, I like that. And that's one thing that it said is, and that's what that controls is how fast the air comes out. So if you're losing a lot of heat, you kind of want to close that bad boy down just to keep some of that heat in there a little bit longer. But you don't want to do it too much because then if you have a wide open intake and your chimney's almost closed, then you get that white thick smoke because your fire's almost choking. Let's see. Keeping the chimney damper open promotes good airflow, drawing smoke access to meat for better smoke flavor and helping avoid stale smoke from sitting in the chamber. Yeah. For longer cooks, after the smoke has reached a stable temperature, chimney damper should stay mostly open to maintain consistent heat and clean smoke. So, I'm starting to feel like this is a really boring lecture, John. How can we spice this up a little bit? Yeah! There we go. I don't know. No. I think, honestly, Mad Scientist Barbecue, shout out to them on YouTube. He does a fantastic video series, I think, on fire management. But he does like an hour-long video where he does, and he's running his huge, 1,000-gallon offset. And so, obviously, things might work a little bit different. But I feel like he does a fantastic job of just showing, hey, this is what you want your smoke to look like. This is how I would adjust for this particular situation. This is how I would adjust for this.
Yeah.
It's actually really cool.
Yeah, I think the takeaways are you've got really two components to a fire. You've got fuel and you've got oxygen. Mm-hmm. And if you want to say heat, those are the three things you need for fire.
Yeah.
You've got to you got to start it, and then you've got to feed it and nurture it with fuel and oxygen. If you run out of fuel or oxygen, the fire will die. So when you keep that in mind, it's just about getting out there and playing with it. And then using the smoke as a guide to tell you, okay, like, we need to be hotter, we need more airflow, like, we've got too much airflow, to get it dialed in on each of your cookers. And like, I mean, I love that you said this before, like, you expected your offset to be just like your barrel. They're different. My barrel and your barrel are different.
Yeah.
We ran them side by side with the exact same amount of charcoal, the exact same amount of fuel, and mine needs more airflow than Mike's does.
Yeah.
So getting to know your particular cooker is a huge thing. And just playing around with those ratios. I mean, we found out with the pig pit, you know, it's this giant cinder block oven essentially that we had put these airflow gates on so that we thought we'd be able to control the temperature. Well, even fully closed, there was so much oxygen in that large of a pit compared to the fuel we had. Like, we couldn't starve it for oxygen. So we had to starve it or add fuel because we couldn't control the oxygen variable in the equation.
That was the craziest thing. Like, I really felt confident that, like, oh, we'll just move this brick a little bit. But you're right. Like, there was so much, and I don't know if it was just seeping through all the cracks or what, but it was getting plenty of oxygen, and it was almost opposite of what we thought we would be doing. Yeah,
so it really just becomes a get to know your cooker. And we talk about this all the time, like, get out there and mess around with it and practice. And don't do a giant cook for people
for your entire ward.
For your like one big send off.
Yeah.
I mean, and I give you crap about that. You've got plenty of fire experience and cooking experience that I knew you were going to be fine.
I had a backup plan. It would have been fine.
Yeah.
But
don't be like me and expect the Brinkman to come through for you.
The freaking Brinkman.
Damn Brinkman. You remember when we used to like talk about the Brinkman every single episode?
Yes. And we were like, come at us, Brinkman.
They never came at us.
But come on, Brinkman.
So.
Yeah, I just echoing that. I would argue you could watch hours of fire management videos on YouTube. You could read all kinds of material. You could have a master's degree in thermodynamics. But I don't think it does anything until you start playing with your pit and seeing exactly how it reacts to certain things. Even different kinds of wood, different moisture contents. Like, it's just things are gonna be different. And the more time you spend with it, like these Pitmasters, they know their cookers better than anything.
Oh, yeah.
And so they spend a lot of time with them. They know exactly, like, I watch Malcolm Reed videos, and he's like, I need like a split every 45 minutes, and it stays consistent. So I just assumed that that's how mine would be, and it's not at all. Like, and maybe it's just because mine's not quite as well built or whatever, but it's just a little bit different. And so playing with your particular cooker, and I'll be honest, John, I have this conversation with my driver's ed kids all the time. They're always like, I don't want to learn how to drive a stick. Like, it's way too scary. Driving a stick is so much more fun to drive than just an automatic. And I think that's kind of how an offset smoker is to a pellet grill. Like, I love my pellet grill. I will never throw shade on pellet grills. However, it's a lot more fun to do it on the offset.
Oh, yeah.
So,
just like driving stick.
Yeah, it's so much more fun.
You will never feel as cool as when you downshift and pass someone on the freeway, Fast and the Furious style.
Yeah.
So,
true that. Well, what do you think, John? I feel like this has kind of been a boring episode a little bit. Mostly just throwing knowledge out there. Hopefully helpful to somebody.
You have a dad joke to send us off?
Man, I would have if you wouldn't have put me on the spot. Shoot, I heard a good one, and now I can't remember it. One of my kids said one today. It's in class, and I can't remember what it was. But I had to be like, that's so dumb. And inside I was like, that's gold, and I'm never forgetting it. And now I forgot it. Gosh dang it.
I need like an anti.
Wah,
Yeah.
wah, wah.
Well, until next time, I'm John.
I'm Mike.
We're Fat Guys with Smokers. Thanks for listening to the Fat Guys with Smokers podcast. Be sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook. Leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Be sure to subscribe so you don't forget to tune in for even more nonsense from a couple of Fat Guys with Smokers.
Don't forget to like, subscribe.